So you've been doing stand-up for 10 years, you said, correct?
Yes. hmm
And you started when you were 18 years old?
hmm
So who inspired you at such a young age to go into stand-up like that?
I always loved, I mean, when I first got like my iPod Nano, like one of the little square inch ones in high school, that was the first like phone or anything I had that I could like store my own music on. And I just immediately bought a Anthony Jeselnik album, a Lonely Island album, and a Louis C.K. album and a Dimitri Martin album, and just listened to those things on loop pretty much. So I think that the Lonely Island, like Andy Samberg and all of them, made it seem like fun and exciting, and like it made it just seem like a cool, fun thing to do. And then listening to like Anthony Jeselnik, we were talking about, it was mostly puns at the beginning. So he was kind of like clever wordplay. He's not like he doesn't do puns, but like he does like one liners, and that was kind of like an exciting new way to hear that. So him, and then I always just loved Louis C.K.'s stand up. Just I Our styles aren't similar at all, but like it just seemed like so good all the time, at least in my opinion.
I've actually never listened to who was it, Louis C.K. you said?
Uh-huh.
I've never listened to him. What type of humor would you say that he has?
He does, like, at least in the album that I had on my iPod, it was the album called Hilarious, and it was like a lot of him just talking about raising his kids. It was very relatable. It was like a recently divorced dad just beat down by life but having funny observations about it. And some of it was storytelling, a lot of it was like self-deprecating, a lot of it was like just saying the shameful things out loud that people think about others and like about raising kids and stuff. Like it was a lot of just like honest acknowledgement of shameful things in a way that like was fun and interesting to listen to. But like he didn't
So
hold back for the sake of sounding like a good person.
so it would be him giving in to his intrusive thoughts and just letting it out.
That's perfectly said. Yeah. That's perfectly said, which sometimes you can't do that. You can't always give in to the intrusive thoughts,
No.
as Louis C.K. demonstrated.
No.
Yeah, that could be a bad thing a lot of the times,
Mm.
but on stage it worked for him. On stage.
I have definitely learned the art of knowing when to let intrusive thoughts out. That
Mhm.
is a very specific audience that you want to have.
Right. Right.
Like, if you're going to a family-friendly show and you know there's a possibility of kids there, do your best to just not give in to those thoughts. Do your best. But
Uh-huh.
if you're going to like a 18 and up show, you know those jokes are okay. But here's the thing, right? You could still go to a 18 and up show and somebody still brings their kid in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
You
that's
know
happened.
how
It's always weird.
how do you as a comic, how do you go about that? Like if there's a kid in your audience that you don't even you know I don't want to use the word want there because you always want to branch out your audience, you know? But how do you handle a situation where there shouldn't be a type of audience at that place? How do you work with that?
In the past, when I didn't have as much material, it would just kind of be like, okay, in order to fill this 15 minutes, I have to say every joke I've ever written. So this kid's going to learn a few new words. Um, and I'll try my best to edit it in the moment. But now that I have like a lot more material to choose from, I can kind of like curate the set a little bit, where if there's like something that's like, I don't have really too many filthy jokes or anything, but like if there is one that is a little bit more like less child friendly, I don't have to say that one anymore, and I can still fill my time and get away with it pretty much. But it always is a concern. Brewery shows are kind of notorious for that, because it is like a place where adults go to drink alcohol, but it isn't like a bar, so kids aren't like barred from entering those places. There's big Jenga, kids can play with that, and if there's big Jenga, that the kids can come in and they can listen to a comedy show, which is unfortunate sometimes. Like you'll be telling jokes, and then they'll just be like kids running around with a dog and giggling, and you can get a laugh if you acknowledge like, oh, this is not who I thought I'd be performing to tonight. And normally the parents bring their kids to a comedy show aren't self-aware enough to get mad when you say bad things and their kids hear them. So it kind of solves itself, but it certainly makes you sweat a little bit more when you see them in the audience.
You never want to offend anybody with your joke, but unfortunately, that is going to happen.
Hmm.
And I think the best way to learn from that is to just go with it. If it happens, going back to what we spoke about Matt Rife earlier, right?
Hmm.
He'll say a joke that people get super offended to, and he'll tell them like, "Oh, shut up! You're at a comedy show." Like
Uh-huh.
he goes with the audience that he's in.
Right.
But then he realizes that if there's a kid in there, then he's like, "What the heck did you bring a child to my show for? What are you
Right.
doing?" Like, he goes with the new environment, you know?
Hmm.
You never wanna offend anybody, but it's good to learn how to go around that offense if you have to.
Need to. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Going with it is so key because, like, you can't stop chaos. You can only kind of like ride it like a wave a little bit. So either like you got to ride with it, and a lot of the time, like you were pointing out with Matt, right? It just calling out what's going on in the room and acknowledging it puts everybody so much at ease that like
that's
you will get a laugh at that. And like if a situation's fucked up, you don't have to put on airs like, oh, let me pretend nothing bad's happening and it'll be a better show. No, acknowledge it and then move on as best you can. But I'm saying that like I do it all the time. I need to work on that, but like it is the best way to go.
It is, it absolutely is. Like, I used to find myself in situations, like, even with filming where I would do something, like, really incredibly, like, that shouldn't have happened type of a thing.
Hmm.
But one thing I've learned is even if something shouldn't have happened, even if it's not something that you were anticipating, it can lead to one of the best like pieces of art that you put out. It
And when you
really
say
could.
something that shouldn't have happened, is that like some external, like you say you're filming outside around like a bunch of variables, something will pop in, or there'll be people, or like, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like for example, right? There was a scene that we had to do, and we were running a dry rehearsal for it. Now, I have the part of the reason that I'm using headsets is I have slight hearing loss.
Uh huh.
So I was thinking to myself, oh, okay, he said action, time to film,
Hmm.
right? I wasn't supposed to film at that point, but it became a learning curve that even if you make a mistake, it's okay because I got one of the best shots. It was a reaction shot that we had to do. I don't want to go too into detail,
Hmm.
but it was a reaction shot that we had to do, and not only did I get the action that happened, I got the reaction of everybody else watching that moment,
Hmm.
and it happened because we weren't supposed to start filming.
Uh huh.
And I found out later from a friend of mine who was on set, you weren't supposed to film that. You were the only one who got that on camera.
Uh huh.
So sometimes it leads to, it might be a mistake, but sometimes it leads to an amazing piece of art.
Hmm.
It does.
Happy accidents.
Absolutely. So you have to learn to grow with whatever environment you're put in.
Hmm.
You know? So Paul, you sent me some clips earlier. I was wondering if it's okay if I could just insert them in at this moment.
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Lately, I've been trying to look less like a ventriloquist dummy. It's not going well. Which is scary, because if I don't find true love in the next 100 days, the curse is going to turn me back into a puppet forever. I've had a bunch of people tell me I look like a ventriloquist dummy. I didn't really see it until recently, though, when I saw a picture of myself giving a speech at a wedding. And in the picture, my friend had his hand on my back.
What are you predicting for this fight?
I predict I rearrange his face.
Fuck you. The only
He's too
rearranging
easily
this
hit.
face is into
Through
a
all the talk
smile.
and through
When
all
they
everything
raise my
else,
fist in
he can be
victory,
hit
I'm
too
winning
easily.
and then I'm
It's happened to him
smiling.
his whole career.
Get used to
And we were
these
talking
teeth.
about somebody
You're gonna
who-
see him.
somebody
Bro, can you tell us about that coat?
Yeah. Gucci mink.
Do you think that's
This is what
unethical?
confidence
This was
looks
made
like.
from the back hair of an Italian man.
Serious. This is what big Irish look
Like
like.
small potatoes.
We're back. That was really really funny. Those were good, those were good clips. That's what I'm talking about, man. Those reaction moments.
Editing magic. There's a clip of Conan O'Brien's show where like apparently they were going to have the band like they'd have a band at the end of each show, but the band wasn't there. They had filmed the prior day. And there's just like 5 minutes of them pretending that they're like, wow, that was an amazing performance. And they couldn't get the take because they kept just like being like, yeah, that was amazing and totally real. I loved all of that.
You never know. I mean, sometimes the worst like mistakes, sometimes the worst moments could lead to the best clip of your life, the best moment of your life. You never
Uh-huh.
know. And if you're the type of person who, let's say you're on stage, right? I remember I go to Comic Con all the time.
Mhm.
Right, and I saw Michael J. Fox. You can tell from my shirt, I'm a big Back to the Future.
Great Scott. Yep.
I went with my girlfriend one year and we saw Michael J. Fox, and he's got Parkinson's.
Hmm.
So some days are good, some days are bad, and it was a bad day for him, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So he's struggling with the autograph, he's struggling with the pictures, he's struggling going up on stage, and he gets brought up on stage, and this is why I say this, right? Like he gets up on stage and he's got Parkinson's, okay? Anything can happen in any given moment with him. He's walking up to the couch where they need to sit and he goes boom, flat down on the ground, slides, almost smacking his head into the leg of the couch.
Oh, okay.
And the guy just gets up, laughs it off, and continues on with his Q&A, and it's one of the best sessions that we've
Uh-huh.
seen him in. You know,
Right.
I guarantee you, if he had gotten up and said, "I don't want to do this anymore," and left, we would have all understood it.
Hmm.
There would have been so many disappointed people that he reacted in that way because he's known to shrug everything off. He's known
Hmm.
to be confident in even the biggest mistakes that he can make.
Right.
So I think if you're the type of person, if you fall and you get back up on camera and you just brush yourself off and you make a joke about it, it'll go great.
It's endearing. It really is.
It is. So that actually, talking about other talent brings me to my last question for you, Paul. Who would you choose to perform with, and where would you like to perform with in terms of stand-up comedy?
Like a duo act or like just on the same show or
It could be either. Could be either
okay.
or.
I guess I've never tried like a duo thing before. That would be fun. It would have to be somebody quick though. Like there's one show. I mean, this is kind of a basic answer because there's a show on Netflix that was called Bumping Mics, and it was Jeff Ross and Dave Attell, and they would both perform at the same time on stage. And like they'd kind of like go back and forth. And once they said something that made the other laugh, they'd like bump their mics together almost like a high five or a fist bump. And I think they have to be so quick to be obviously they wrote some of it, but they're on their feet, they're on the fly. So I think it would be fun to do something obviously like with them. That would be very cool. Obviously, I'm nowhere near that level, but like that would be cool to do someday with one of them because I think Dave Attell is like one of the greatest joke writers ever, and Jeff Ross is an incredible roaster, and they're so quick on their feet. And yeah, so maybe that one of those guys, if I was to do like a duo act type of thing, would be a dream come true.
That would be amazing. David, I think I agree with you. One of the best like joke writers of this generation. Um, and who was the other one that you said?
Jeff Ross,
I don't think
he's
I've seen much of his work.
he is mostly he carved a lane for himself as like a roast battle guy, or like if
Okay,
there's like a roast on Comedy Central, he'll be on the dais, kind of like they pick different hosts, but he'll kind of be like the master of ceremonies type of guy because he's on all of them.
gotcha. Okay. And where would you like to perform with them? Is there any type of venue that you would like to perform at?
I think it would be fun to do the Comedy Cellar in New York is kind of like an iconic stand up location that it's very prestigious and hard to get into, but like I would love to perform there someday. That would be awesome.
Hopefully, somebody from there sees you on this and decides to reach out to you.
Check it out.
That would be amazing.
Mhm.
Um, so Listen, I think we're gonna end the episode here, Paul. I greatly appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you laughing with us and telling us some of your jokes and some of your story. And I hope we can have you back at some point.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Absolutely. Well, this is it for the this episode of Mahoney Cinema Conversations, and we will see you guys soon. Oh, thank you. See you soon.
See ya.